Hello, everybody. My name is Benny, and welcome to The Fool's Apprentice. So, today's one of those other days where I get to talk about one of my least favorite cards. I have complained, and I think many of us have. I think a lot of us are on the same page when it comes to two specific cards, and I'll give you a guess of what they are: the Eight of Wands and the Three of Swords. Ah, can it be more mundane? Okay. So I did a video not too long ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago, on the Eight of Wands. Because I would, I play back my videos because I'm editing, little things here and there, not much most times. And I keep hearing myself boo-hoo about the Eight of Wands and the Three of Swords. So I was like, I'm fed up. Let me go through my decks. Let me see what I can find. And I know there are some really good Eight of Wands, and I found some great ones. So I knew immediately after I did that video that I wanted to do one on the Three of Swords. And because let me tell you, I like the card. I don't necessarily like how it's depicted. And, uh, trying to mind my words. Artists work really hard to create wonderful representations of each of the cards that we see. And then you go through and it's like, oh my God, amazing, amazing. Three of Swords. Wonk, wonk. So I just got fed up. So I said, you know what? Let's go through them. And I will tell you, I went through all of my tarot decks. And I can't believe I didn't do this. Okay, so I knew that I was going to do the Three of Swords, right? I should have gone through all my decks one time, picked out all the Eight of Wands and all the Three of Swords, and then another one for another video. So another one of all these cards, all at one time. Did I do that? No. Why? I don't know. But I went and went through all my cards, shuffle, 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 found it, go to the next one, so forth and so on. It was an endeavor. And then I'm doing the Three of Swords, and you'd figure, since I knew that that was such an endeavor, I would do the Three of Swords and that other card that I'm going to be doing a video on. Did I do that? No. So I went through all my decks again, pulled out all the Three of Swords that I liked, and I'm going to have to do it again with this other card. I'm like, oh my gosh, Benny, you're making your life so much more difficult. But that's my life. I am my own worst enemy sometimes. But I think I found some really interesting ones. And I'd like to share them with you. But I'm going to do it a little different today. And I'm going to sip some water while I do this. I love this Starbucks tumbler. You're going to notice I have tons of these. I'm not going to get into it, but I have tons of these. More than anyone should own. But I went gaga when I saw this one. So let's start with my first one. I have it in a wrap. I bought this wrap for this deck. Now, Lisa Papez and Peggy Papez did 20. Was it them? Was it them or was it somebody else? Am I getting this confused? Somebody, maybe it wasn't them, asked, it wasn't them, asked box or wraps. I'm a box guy, but that's before I knew I was a box guy because I love these beautiful wraps. So I got this one. I just think it's gorgeous. I got it on Etsy. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that. That's beautiful. And this Three of Swords from Anna Mundi Tarot is of a robin. Oh my God. Look how beautiful that is. And, when it comes to the suits, the suit of swords deals with the mind, with intellect, with analyzing things and processing things and how we look at the world and how we decide we're going to communicate and make a plan. It's really up here. All this that happens here affects everything else. And so the general definition is grief, heartache, something to that effect. And I really, really had a hard time in the beginning trying to make both those things come up, because heartache, I get, but in the suit of swords, when I first started learning, I really struggled, because I'm like, but I'm dealing with the mind, but we're talking about an emotion like grief and heartache. And it took me a while, but finally I was able to come to a resolution where the cards made sense to me. And really, for me, the suit of swords deals with decisions that you've made that have created a situation where heartache and grief can occur, or something that's going on in the mind that is creating distress that affects you emotionally. For example, this is just, I think, a simple example that I can come up with is obsession can create heartache. And the one that comes to my mind is, if you haven't, I'm going way back. There's a movie called Fatal Attraction. If you haven't seen it, oh my gosh, it's a really good movie. But it's about this woman who becomes obsessed with this married man. And then all chaos breaks loose. But she is suffering because of this obsession. And so that's where I see this turmoil, heartache, this what she can't have, just really finally made sense to me. It's this mental anguish that occurs. And so when I see this, that's kind of hard for me to kind of come to peace with, I guess. And so I do use the traditional definition with the Three of Swords. But when there's a place to see it differently, that's where I can actually use it. But this, for me, really speaks to innocence lost. It's like, and if I use the mindset, it's like being a young person that makes a decision that has really bad consequences. For like having unprotected sex as a teenager, and then you find that your partner is pregnant, or you find yourself pregnant and not wanting to be at a young age, not really in love with the person that you did this act with, and now you're going to have to figure it out. That is a lot of anguish. And so I see this as like this innocence lost kind of a feel for me. You know, that teenage girl, that teenage boy, that young 20 somebody who just really made a bad decision and now has found themselves in a really, really bad place. It's hard not to feel the emotion of this deck for me. I mean, it is something that you can't take back. And so I just think this is, and it's almost a traditional kind of view of the Three of Swords, but the Robin represents the heart. And so it's really, really, really smart to kind of have the swords in the same position with the Robin where the heart would be, but it feels much more intense. So that is the Anima Mundi Tarot, which is a beautiful deck, by the way, if you don't have it. Going back in its beautiful wrap. And I will tell you, I have so many decks where as soon as I open, I'm like, nope. And you know, a card can ruin a deck for me. Yeah, I thought I said that wrong. A card can ruin a deck, but I've come to terms with the fact that a lot of the Eight of Wands and Three of Swords are going to be the general depiction that we usually see from the Rider-Waite-Smith. The next one, Darkness of Light. Oh, I love this deck. It's one of those decks that's super masculine for me. Which I'm so grateful for. There are decks like that out there. Beautiful, beautiful colors. Now, man, talk about this one. Look at that. That is stunning. So this one has a woman sitting in front of a tree, surrounded by Three of Swords. This feels like a heartache, some kind of grief, some kind of loss, some kind of bad decision that you feel that you can't share. We're talking about grief, it's called disenfranchised grief, the kind of grief that society kind of shuns away, doesn't want to face, doesn't want to be involved in, and you know it. And so knowing this, you can't share. So you're left alone to try to figure out how to deal with all this emotion all by yourself. It's very isolating. And the thing that really gets me about this card is how lonely she looks and how vulnerable she looks. She doesn't look like she's wearing any clothes. My old man glasses. Yeah, she doesn't look like she's wearing any clothes. It's the kind of card that makes me think that this woman cannot even look at herself in the mirror because she feels such great shame and embarrassment, maybe. And in a reading, this would be a very, very difficult card to kind of soften the blow with, I guess. And this is the kind of card that's just going to let you know that this is bad. This is really bad. I don't know if you can hear the child crying. I have a neighbor with a young child, and she's crying. I live in a condominium, so I'm not too far away from somebody else. Hopefully, I can isolate my voice so all the background kind of goes away. But also, if you look at the colors and the environment, it's very, very cold. Very cold. There is no comfort in this card whatsoever. You are feeling everything very raw. There's nothing soft about this card whatsoever. And I really like that because it really gives you a hardcore feeling of, the emotion that's coming through in that card with the environment, with their color tones, the way she's placed behind the swords. Because if she moves, she's going to get cut. Love it. Love it. Okay. So another one that I really, really liked comes from the Somnia Tarot. And this one, similar but very different from the Darkness of Light. Another woman, but instead the swords are above. And I like that the swords are above because that is where the swords lies, in the mind, in the intellect, in the upper region of the body. Here, we're looking, and again, cowering in. She's like in herself, trying to protect what's going on, not trying to open up and show what happened. This one feels like a gut punch, big time. And this feels like very prolonged pain, prolonged grief, something that this person has been experiencing for a very long time. This isn't something that just happened. And the toll that it's taking on her is profound. This is the kind of, I think, pain that will always linger. No matter how much time passes, this card says that this kind of pain is always going to linger. It's going to always be in the background. It might be white noise where you can kind of move on with your life, but it's going to be right here, always following you. It's like that dark cloud that you're one step ahead of. That's this card for me. And man. And another thing about this is that she's out in the elements. Don't know if it's cold. You really can't tell. But she's definitely not comfortable because she's in water. And if you stay in water for a very long time, what happens? Your skin starts to absorb a lot of that water. it starts to puff up, starts to wrinkle. You stay too long, it can kind of start to hurt your skin. Very, very, very raw place to be in. So this really brings a lot of intellectual suffering, trying to kind of think, how did I get into myself in this place? How do I get in myself in this place? God, I can't believe I'm so stupid. I did this. And it's just this repeated story that gets you stuck, that you can't get out of. Very, very powerful card for me. But then again, if those of you know that the Somnia Tarot don't play around, does not play around. I don't use this one very much because it's brutal sometimes. It's like, you know, I'll go to it when I really need to hear like the raw truth of something. But even then, sometimes I get a little surprised with how raw it can be. And I actually like to use this with a death doula. It's a great pairing, especially for grief work. Okay, a new collection to my deck is Tarot of the Abyss. So, I didn't know what I was going to feel about this deck. I have really come to really adore it. It's a beautiful, beautiful deck. I'm not sure if I like the cardstock or not, to be honest, but it's going to last a lifetime, really. It's really good. I guess I'm just used to a lot of the linen cardstock, but because of their watercolor, I don't think it translates to unlinen as well. Therefore, the choice of the cardstock. Look at this. Take a moment to take it all in. Just take it all in. One of the things, I watched her walk through on a Torian, and she talks about this pool of water that come from her tears. And that blew me away. Like, to be in such pain that you literally cried a pool of water. So much that you're submersed in it. Underneath, you could see that the sword going through the heart. So that depiction is still there. But I like how completely different this image is. This is one that, this is the kind of grief that is overwhelming. Like, you can't seem to catch your breath. It's like you're stuck in a time that you can't get away from. And it takes every ounce of your energy away. You are just zapped. You're emotionally exhausted. You're depleted. You just don't even have the energy to sit up, to lift your heads. It is a job to open your eyes. That's what this card feels like for me. And this card actually really does feel like really, really heavy grief. And this does feel like something was lost, something very profound, something very deep, something that will be very, very difficult to overcome. But another thing that Anna Torian said in her video is that she is coming through. She is coming out of that place that she was submerged in with her grief. So there's a sense of resiliency in this card that I really like. And so when I heard her explain this card, I could see it all. And pobrecita, I mean, my heart goes out to her. It really, really does. So this is a really, really good card because there's so much emotion in it that there's so many different ways that it could be read. That's what I really like. I think this is a very versatile kind of card when it comes to grief. So that is the Tarot of Echoes. A beautiful deck. I do know that and then she signs the inside. I love it. And she sends a personal little card, business card with a little note in the back, which was very sweet. I love when artists do that. just makes the experience so much richer. She is not going to create any more indie decks. It's going to go mass market. Might take a couple of years, but it will be out eventually for everybody to purchase. I took a chance on it. I because of her other tarot decks, and I'm so glad I got it. I really am. Love it. I can be so dumb. I know. Okay. This one was a surprise. The children of, what is it? Lithia? Lithia. The children of Lithia. I don't use this deck very often. People love it. In fact, that she has a Kickstarter out that deals with plants. I'm not a plant person, so I didn't back it. I've used this minimally. It's a stunning deck. I don't know why I'm not using it as much. I don't know. But the cardstock feels really nice. It's a beautiful, beautiful card. Now, look at that. Man, this feels like a betrayal of innocence. Like, this feels like an evil act has occurred. It's like somebody walked into a situation with all good intentions, and it just turned around on them extremely quickly. And before they knew it, everything fell apart. It feels like you were invited to a party, and the party was basically a joke on you. And the person that invited you to that party was your best friend, the person you've known your whole life, who you like trusted completely. This is like an unexpected blow that just brought you to your knees. Because, doves are swans. Doves. Swans are just very beautiful, loving creatures. They represent love. When two mates meet face to face, they create this beautiful heart shape. They mate for life. And when one dies, the other one does not do well. And so when this one comes up, it's just I get a very visceral feeling from this deck. The kind that jars you from the inside out. Because it's so unexpected. I mean, it's like you end up having the Six of Pentacles come out. Oh no, the Nine of Cups. Then this card comes out, and then no. So you got the nine of Cups, 10 of Cups, and then this one comes out. It's like the spread was going so well. So, yeah, that's what that one feels like. God, it is a beautiful deck. Another thing, the one in the guidebook kind of references the fact that if you look at the swan's face, you will see that they're collected, they're calm, which shows a sense of presence and groundedness that can help the seeker, get through this. So that I liked. The guidebook did help with that part. So, I like that I'm doing this because it's letting me realize that I got a bad attitude that I need to get over when it comes to the Eight of Wands and Three of Swords. Like a bad attitude. Okay. The Victorian Romantic. Love this deck. I say that all the time. I love this deck. I think 99% of the decks that I would bring out, I would say, I love this deck. Okay, wow. Okay. Now this one, oh man, look at that. This is a very intellectual, like, it's not an obsession. It's more like regret, like this intellectual thinking of having made these choices in your life that got you to this place, wondering, how did I ever get here? Like, what choices did I make in my life for things to get so bad that here I am? And probably coming to the realization that you wasted a lot of years making some really poor decisions that kept you in a place you didn't want to be in, but were too afraid to make a different decision. This feels like self-betrayal to me. Like being in a relationship with somebody that you've realized decades ago you should have left, and some event just happened that kind of broke down that veil of denial. And now you're starting to feel and see the ramifications of all those decisions and the life that you're living that you never hoped or dreamed for yourself. That's what this feels like to me. I mean, look at her. She is just in agony here, emotional, intellectual agony. And then she has her companion, the little dog, who's trying to comfort her. And you could see people in the background right here on this side. Could be her husband, could be anybody, but just this moment to having to get away, to compose yourself, knowing that you fucked yourself. It's not a nicer way of saying it. Like, you screwed yourself so bad and you can't even see how you're going to get out. And at this point, it's not even thinking about how you're going to get out. It's realizing that you put yourself in this position through one decision after another. This feels very, very heavy. Very, very sad. Very sad. Not very Victorian romantic, right? But that's what it feels like to me. Making decisions that get you in a place in your life. It's not making one decision that you regret. It's making multiple decisions that get you to a place in your life that you have absolute regret over. Man, that's scary. And the thing is that really happens. That really happens. Okay. So the next one comes from the Bohemian Gothic. I love the Bohemian Gothic. I really do. It's in my top 3 decks of all time. Let me tell you, I can't tell you if this is my number 2 or number 3 deck. The Spoiler Tarot's number 1. Then it's the Terra Volatile in this deck. Oh, look at this 3. Oh my gosh. Okay. Now, this is a very interesting card because I think this card encompasses multiple things for me. So if you look at the bottom, you will see 2 doves. One is alive and one is dead. Here, that area right here, for me, equates grief. Like traditional grief. Loss of a loved one. I suspect that these 2 doves were mates and one of them is dead. And since it's the Bohemian Gothic, it's probably through foul play. I don't know if I've ever used the term foul play in my entire life, but because it's a Bohemian Gothic, that's what came to mind. But there is traditional grief. Now, this is probably the woman who loved these birds, fed these birds, and she is pissed. She is not happy, and she has lost it. And now she is out for revenge. This woman wants payback, and it is so focused that it is going to cause her a lot of mental anguish. This is a perfect card for mental anguish for me. A sense of revenge. And people talk about, I've heard on a lot of these decks, you have to excuse me, it's allergies. I've read in several guidebooks about revenge. If you look at this woman's eyes, yeah, she ain't messing around. See if I can get you to look at her eyes. Those are some eyes that you would not want to face in a dark alley. I don't care if you're 6'5" and she's 4'11". This woman is out to get you. And so this card, it's a really interesting card because of that sense of grief with the birds. Her grief that has turned into seething rage, anger, but it's that deep down kind that is kind of scary, you know. And she's going to get you. She's going to get you no matter what. No matter the cost to her. She could be killed. She could end up in prison. She could kill the wrong person because she's not thinking clearly. That is the Three of Swords for me. Easily. So, spoiler tarot. Oh my God. Okay. So I got to tell you, half the fun for me in doing these is I get to bring the decks out and I get to play with them. I know it's the silliest thing, but I get to pull them out and use them for this. It's so much fun for me. I will tell you, oh my God. I think many of you may be surprised with how I feel about the Three of Swords that I picked this as one that I really, really like. And that is the Spoiler Tarots. It's a heart with swords through it. What I like about this sword and reading the guidebook is this is a kind of grief that something can grow from. So if you see, there's a flower up on top. But what I like about this particular card is the use of colors and proportion. So if you look at the size of the heart, it's really small compared to everything else. And then the swords aren't your traditional swords that are big, powerful, you know, swords that a knight would use in battle. These are really thin swords, like maybe for not even as thin as jousting, but they're much more delicate. You have to have much more finesse with this. So this one really cuts deep. It's like if you put your finger on it, your finger comes off. But what I like about this is this feels like the kind of grief, the kind of sadness, the kind of loss that is really quiet, the kind that you don't have to explain to anybody. You know, it's the kind of event that happens that you just know that they need space and quiet, and you just don't want to be that noise that interrupts that process that they're going through, that grieving process. And even though there's this big bright red, which I think for me signifies the actual pain and how visceral it probably feels, the heart in itself being so small in the middle of that kind of tells me it's a very delicate kind of sorrow that they're experiencing. This is the kind of grief that if you're with that person, that there really isn't anything to say. What you do is you just sit quietly with them. You might put your hand on their thigh, or you might put your hand on their hand, and you both sit there and you just look off into the distance knowing that, you know, you love each other and you're just there for each other, and no matter what, it's going to be okay. No words have to pass. I really, really, really love that about this card. It's a beautiful, beautiful card. So that is the Spoiler Tarot. And so, as you can see, these cards really, like, I'm very aware of my energy level. Like, it went down significantly talking about this particular Three of Swords. And I really do pay attention to those things when I'm doing my readings to see, like, even the energy level can shift so quickly, like it did with this, because I was really hyped up. And now I'm really, like, calm and serene. It's the power of a card. Two more. The Botan Tarot. This is a beautiful deck. Beautiful box. I think these have the prettiest backs I've ever seen. Now, this one was a little harder for me to kind of figure out. It's beautiful. Very unique. Look at that. A flower with some scissors and a blade. And it's a crane, I believe. And this feels, I don't know, very formal. Like there's a certain way you need to grieve that's expected from everybody around you. And all I could think of, it's what I think of, is like when a royal dies, like the Queen of England who died, there is a proper way to show your grief in public. It's like, this is what you show. It's like when Princess Diana died, there was a way that, the royal family had to show what their grief was to keep up appearances. And so that's what this feels like. It feels very constraining, the kind that you just can't let go. It could be the kind that if you let go, you'll fall apart. So you have to try to keep it together, And so this one feels very complicated to me. It doesn't feel like a normal decision that you made or a thought or some kind of intellectual thing that happened that created this anguish or this grief. And it doesn't feel like an emotional, it's very distilled for me, which leads me to believe that someone is not allowing themselves to feel the feeling. Someone might be in denial. This could be that you're not allowed to feel your grief. You're not allowed to speak of it. This is something that you have to hide. I find this one very bothersome because of that. And to have to read this one, I don't know if that would be tough for me because of the fact that the person that has to hear the message may not like it at all. But that's the Botan Tarot. That's a really interesting one. It feels very, very distant. It's like a person has armor and they're just, they could be in denial of their grief. Like they can't see it. They don't want to see it. They're not going to see it. That's what the Botan Three of Swords feels like to me. So the last one is the K Tarot Love. Another beautiful deck. I love how artsy this one feels. Even the guidebook has a little ribbon and stuff on it. So I like this one more because of how beautiful it looks. And it's a big card. It feels delicate. I don't know. This one's a hard one for me. This feels very distant. It feels like someone's having a really difficult time processing what's going on. Someone who's having a difficult time putting words to what they're experiencing, what they're feeling. This feels very ambiguous to me. Like there is some pain happening, but like it's really hard to get a handle of it. This could also be because when I look at the image, you'll see these three, I guess, I don't know what they are. We'll call them flowers because they look like they haven't opened up yet. that this is like maybe anticipatory grief, that that the event is about to happen, or maybe someone's in the process of dying and you're there and you're hurting and you know that the big grief is going to come in. But here, this is maybe anticipatory grief. You're kind of foreseeing that something's going to happen and it's going to hurt a lot. Maybe the ending of a marriage, maybe having to make the decision to end a relationship or to leave a job. And you know that it's going to weigh on you because you love that job, you love that person, but it's just not a good fit. Yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful card. But, it's interesting this is so fascinating to me. It's really interesting to see. This is why I like seeing so much diversity when I say diversity, how they depict the image in so many different ways for the traditional Three of Swords. It really allows your mind to start to really analyze and work what this Three of Swords means, which is really cool, because what happens for me is that now as I do that, I start to get a more clear idea of what that card is, like for the Three of Swords. Now, because I looked at all these cards, I think there were 10 of them. I have more information about the Three of Swords that I can tap into that I didn't have before, which is so cool. And based on the question, the person, the cards, this card, I picked the one that's the hardest for me, right? This card can now mean multiple things. If I put a couple of cards next to it, or the question, it doesn't just necessarily mean this anticipatory grief, this ambiguous grief, this decision that has to be made that is not going to feel good. It can mean so many other things because of all the other cards that I've looked at. So I think that's kind of cool. All right. This was a really cool experience. And I think this would be a really good practice to do for the cards that you might be struggling with. Let's say you're struggling with the Seven of Swords for whatever reason. Pulling out Seven of Swords from the other decks that you have, putting them next to each other, seeing the differences, the similarities, the nuances of what it could be, might be what you need to start getting a better understanding of the Seven of Swords overall. That is actually a really good idea, I think. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that thought of it, but I thought of it today. All right, guys, I really hope you liked this. This was a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it. Oh my God. And I will tell you that I can feel the heaviness of the Three of Swords in me right now, because I feel tired. I am tired. It's the end of the day. It's like 8 o'clock at night. But a really great exercise. I'm glad I did it. I hope I complain less about the Three of Swords and the Eight of Wands. And until next time, my name is Benny, and I am the Fool's Apprentice. Bye, guys.